This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for March 29th, 2025. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. A confidential text message. As of the writing of this script, we know a lot about these released signal messages, but I suspect that this will not be over for a long time. The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, was accidentally included on a communication line about Houthi rebels. Now, instead of leaving the chat before deleting all messages and alerting the proper authorities, Goldberg decided to get a story out of it. Now, supposedly, this is a threat to national security, but Hillary Clinton's private server that she could wipe at a moment's notice was not. I'm sure that a lot of messages go to the wrong people every day in that town. Again, you leave the chat, delete the message, and alert the proper authorities. Unless your goal is to derail President Trump, then you publish the messages. I know that every reporter dreams of breaking a big story, but one of the biggest responsibilities of a reporter is not just what they report, but what they choose not to report. And this is especially dangerous if you do not have all of the facts. Something that the Associated Press learned the hard way. Trump praises Putin. The fake news, in this case the Associated Press, has very severe Trump derangement syndrome. Recently, they decided that during an interview with Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, that President Donald Trump and Putin were, quote, good friends, close quotes. This was repeated on networks such as MSDNC. Once the full interview was released, there was a problem. Apparently, Gabbard was talking about the relationship between President Trump and the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. The outlet did not publish the story to inform the public. That has not been their goal regarding President Trump for years. Their goal was to seed TDS in the American population. All of those who are on the fence about our president would hear this and connect him with the Russian oligarch, rather than the Ukrainian oligarch that we are supposed to support. It is quite sad, really. So speaking of international issues, let us talk about warfare, specifically regarding President Trump and the military-industrial complex. The F-47 takes flight. The United States government via President Trump has announced the new Boeing F-47. It is the first of the upcoming 6th generation of stealth fighter aircraft. Supposedly, this new jet comes with all of the bells and whistles, including an onboard AI. However, the idea of this scares me. We need to
beware the military-industrial complex.
The neocons have long since hijacked the Republican Party, even though we are trying to stop them. While our military is depleted, it is also the biggest strain on the federal budget. Maybe if we were not spending our resources protecting every other foreign country, including those who hate us, we could have more resources stateside. And with more resources stateside, we could focus on quality over quantity. But then how would we defend our interests internationally? That is an excellent question, hypothetical viewer. Surely you must have realized by this point that every time that America gets involved, things go from bad to worse. Furthermore, we have allies who should be paying their fair share in time, money, and resources, but are not. The countries in that area are the first line of defense, assuming America should be involved at all. You do not see us going to France to deal with Mexican drug cartels. Likewise, France should deal with the war between Ukraine and Russia before Americans are even bothered. Now, speaking of situations that we honestly should not be involved in, let us talk about Israel. Peace deal. Yay or nay? The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has been heavily criticized for his tactics in dealing with Hamas and Palestinian threats. According to PragerU, the average civilian death toll for urban warfare is close to 90%. However, Israel is closer to 50%. Now, if we assume a negatively skewed curve with 90% being the average, 2.28 to 0.00003% of wars would have this kill count, depending on the standard deviation. This means that not only is Israel doing spectacularly in limiting civilian casualties, they are in one of the lowest percentiles in civilian deaths possible. This is because they warn the people to evacuate and sometimes call off missions if too many civilians will be harmed. Now, there is supposedly a ceasefire in the works. If the deal is for land, it is my opinion that Israel should reject it. Every time that the enemies of Israel get land, there is more ground for missile launchers. I do not want this war, but Israel did not ask for missiles to be launched into major cities, or for other countries to build on their land. I believe wholeheartedly that there is no peaceful solution to this, aside from the Prince of Peace. Okay, let us move on from international issues to stateside issues. Impact by domestic terrorists. Tolerant liberals who used to praise Teslas are now burning them. We know that they do not care about the environment anymore, but how bad is the damage in numbers? They are burning electric cars to the ground. A brief estimate by ChatGPT gave some interesting numbers. Burning one Tesla or Cybertruck to the ground potentially releases 2.5 metric tons of CO2. That is the same as driving a car 6,200 miles. For reference, that is the same as driving across the continental United States twice, or driving from London to Beijing, or 1/4 of the Earth's circumference. It is also how much the average house emits over the course of 4 months, or the output of a large industrial plant running for 2 hours, or the output of a city the size of New York or Los Angeles over the course of 2.5 seconds. And this is just for each one they burn. I could not find an exact number as to how many cars these tolerant liberals burned, but I would think that it would be quite a lot. The environmental impact because of this could be astronomical, but these domestic terrorists may not be the only criminals that Attorney General Pam Bondi prosecutes. Prosecuting the biggest criminals. Growing up, I thought supervillains wore colorful costumes and lived on volcanic islands. However, the older I get, the more I realize that I was so wrong. But not for the reason that you would think. The reason it is so wrong is that most supervillains wear suits and live in Washington, D.C. Elon Musk of Tesla and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has uncovered, as of the writing of this script, more than $241 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse. That is roughly $2,147 per taxpayer. Of course, cutting these wasteful programs is the very least that should be done. However, Pam Bondi is taking the next important step. She is prosecuting these people. If you just cut the program, another crony will come and put something else in its place. However, if you prosecute them for what they have done, their successor might not be as willing to commit the same waste, fraud, or abuse. MAGA 2.0 is taking care of business every day and working overtime. However, there is another reason that Elon Musk is in the news this week. Sold out of Teslas. Tesla is reporting massive sales. I have no interest in an electric vehicle, but their new Model Y is sold out in multiple locations. Let me repeat that for those who are hard of hearing. Their new Model Y is sold out. This means that people are buying them left, right, and center. In other words, people want Tesla products. And I am going to go out on a limb and say that the people who are buying these cars are not the environmentalist liberals of yesteryear. They are probably conservatives who want an electric car and want to support one of the most important members of President Trump's team. And a bit of food for thought, Elon Musk reportedly only owns 12% of Tesla. So the violence against Tesla is not hurting him, just American employees and Tesla owners. The latter includes a Jew who got a swastika on his car and a woman in a wheelchair. However, while sales are going up, their stock price is reportedly going down. I suspect there may be some manipulation behind the scenes. Either way, Tampon Tim is all for letting an American company go under. Tampon Tim on Tesla stock. Tampon Tim, after his failed vice presidential bid, is desperate for attention. In a recent move, he stated that he was so excited about seeing Tesla stock crash. Apparently, he never looked at his own stock portfolio or the pension plans of Minnesotans, because Tesla is a part of that. With his government salary, he is set for life. It is only his inherent greed of wanting more that keeps him looking to the reins of power. However, ordinary people may find it harder to survive. If Tesla stocks keep dropping like this, their nest eggs will not be worth much. Now he has tried and failed to walk it back, but the damage is done. He is just another rich white liberal who does not care about the cost of living for the average American. Speaking of the cost of living, let us talk about the price of eggs. Where do eggs come from? If you ask the average child or liberal, not that there is much of a difference. They might believe that eggs just appear on grocery shelves and that it is evil capitalists who upcharge everyone else. While I cannot prove that the Biden administration systematically burned down farms or engaged in the mass destruction of healthy flocks over the perceived bird flu, it would be par for the course and within their modus operandi. To bring down the cost of eggs, the United States Department of Agriculture is importing eggs from other countries. Fun fact! Eggs have a long room temperature shelf life, but it is only because Americans wash their eggs that they have to be refrigerated. Either way, our flocks are low due to the bird flu, but egg prices are going down. I would think that other countries would have the bird flu as well, but they have enough eggs for themselves and for us. This implies that either the bird flu is not reaching these other countries, or that the bird flu was a scare tactic created entirely out of the minds behind Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird is here to remind you to never question the official narrative. Speaking of food, let us talk about what is happening at the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA. Outlawing GRaS. GRaS is the abbreviation for generally recognized as safe, not the very common plant. It is a catch-all term used by the FDA to describe things that are considered so safe that there is no need to investigate them. According to RFK Jr., this has been expanded to include virtually everything. There is a reason why European foods only include dozens of chemicals, but American foods include hundreds, if not thousands of chemicals. Most of these in regard to food coloring that does not affect the flavor one iota. Others are flavors that are designed to keep us addicted to these unhealthy substances. When I was in middle school in the early 2000s, my mom put me on the Feingold diet. This was designed to eliminate dependence on these artificial chemicals that were supposed to be especially destructive to neurodivergent children such as myself. However, according to Healthline, the effectiveness of this diet lacks hard evidence. As for me, I felt it worked. But what would I know? I was just a kid who found it easier to operate without those chemicals than with them. It is very possible that Dr. Feingold was just very ahead of his time, because we know a lot of these ingredients use petrol products that are not meant to be consumed by people. It is also possible that Feingold was right for all of the wrong reasons and that it was not these specific ingredients, but that the unnatural foods themselves are being replaced with more natural foods. Either way, RFK is hard at work and more qualified than Levine ever was. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.